So here's the headline at the top of the front page of yesterday's New York Times. President says he'd storm in to stop a killer. He was talking to the nation's governors. The obvious context here is the Florida school shooting and a range of proposals, gun control, mental health, the president was talking about. But as soon as he said that, and I'll read you the quote in a minute, I knew that that would be, irresistible fodder for the media. So the way a lot of segments and stories kind of shorthanded it was just pulling out the president saying, I really believe I'd run in even if I didn't have a weapon. Now, obviously, that's the kind of braggadocious thing that Donald Trump tends to say and that tends to attract all kinds of media attention. Here's the full quote, just so you get a little bit more of the nuance. He said, I really believe, you don't know until you test it, but I really believe I'd run into, even if I didn't have a weapon, and I think most of the people in this room would have done that too, because I know most of you. But the way they performed was really a disgrace. They are the sheriff's deputies who did not run into the Parkland High School when the shooting began. Now, I get it. It's the most interesting thing he said, and of course it plays into the media narrative that this is a boastful president and all of that. But I would ask this question, as the media kind of fixate on this. What is more important? What President Trump and Congress may or may not do on this problem of mass shootings, which he, by the way, has put at the top of the national agenda, or, the question of whether he envisions himself as some sort of hero. Because, it's a hypothetical question, and we don't hire presidents to put themselves at risk in fighting crime. We do hire them to try to combat crime, but not by putting on a cape and running into a building like that. So it just seemed to me that's a bit of a diversion. This is sort of the pattern. The president says something inartful, the press pounces on it, but the underlying issue then tends to get overshadowed. So at this session with the governors, the president repeated that he is going to ban bump stocks. He says that's absolutely going to happen. He talked about the need for very strong, in his words, background checks, tightening up the background check system. He also has talked in recent days about his controversial proposal to arm teachers and others in schools who have been trained to use firearms. I understand why that's controversial. Most major teacher groups are against it. He did seem to back off on that a little bit when he said that should be up to the states, because if it is up to the states, then it doesn't leave any room for federal action. But there was an interesting omission in the session with the governors, which was televised, and that was he didn't bring up the proposal he had made to raise the age limit from 18 to 21 for anyone to walk in and buy an assault-style weapon like the AR-15 that was used in Florida. And so that has made some people wonder whether he's backing off that, because he said originally last week, the president said that the NRA was going to go along with that. Well, the NRA is not going along with that. And he mentioned to the governors he'd had lunch with top NRA officials. An interesting comment here. He said that sometimes you have to fight with the NRA if you believe in something. And that, to me, is going to be the test. So you have, the Washington Post did a story saying, here's what Trump has done in the face of danger, mentioning one time when he appeared to be spooked, when a man charged the stage at a campaign rally, and also that he had 5 Vietnam draft deferments, one of them for bone spurs. A lot of papers picking up Stephen Colbert, the late-night critic-in-chief of President Trump, who made jokes about what are you going to do, run in there and stab them with your bone spurs. But I think all this is a distraction. It's a hypothetical. It's another controversial Trump remark. If Donald Trump, who built this up, who put it on television, who says that this is a problem he's going to solve, if he lets this moment pass without pushing Congress into doing something, that's one thing. On the other hand, if he does take on the NRA, even on this age limit question, and does manage to push legislation that we haven't been able to get for decades, while upholding the principles as he sees it of the Second Amendment, if he manages to get that through Congress, well, that would show a kind of courage that's very different, but no less important than running into a building under siege by a gunman.